Hello everyone. Well, here we are again. Hope you're all well. We're now going to be continuing with Bad Dad by David Walliams, and if you recall, last time, poor old Queenie, left in the pouring rain as the gang, which now includes Frank and his dad and the two henchmen, trudging across the mud towards Mr. Big's house. Let's see what happens. And this chapter is called Crime Does Pay. After trudging across the fields covered in cowpats in the pouring rain, the group arrived at a set of huge iron gates. A sign outside read, Pilfer House. "That's it," said Fingers. He pressed a buzzer and leaned into an intercom. "Mr. Big residence?" "It's Fingers and Thumbs. We've got a present for the governor." "He's been expecting you. One moment, please." Slowly, the gates whirred open, and the four walked up the long driveway. At the end of it was an enormous country house. In all his 11 years, Frank had never seen a home so grand. It looked like a palace, with its thick Roman-style columns, tall windows, and stone steps leading up to a huge wooden door. Looking at all of this in awe, Frank muttered, "Crime does pay." They passed an enormous ornamental fountain, which had at its centre a giant marble statue. It was a likeness of Mr. Big himself, striking a heroic pose with his dressing gown flying in the wind like a cape. He'd made himself look like a superhero rather than the super-villain he really was. The four climbed the stone steps to the imposing wooden door. Fingers knocked with the solid gold knocker. Boom, boom, boom. After a few moments, a butler with a bow tie and tails answered the door. "My master is waiting in the study for you," he announced. He was a short, thin man with an unsmiling face. From his accent and appearance, Frank could tell he was Chinese, but trying to sound like someone very posh. The butler led the way down a long corridor and into Mr. Big's study. "You're late," snarled Mr. Big. The little man was seated behind a large desk in his office, chomping on a cigar. At his feet were two black cats with diamond-encrusted collars. The room was an embarrassment of gold. Gold desk, gold chair, gold lamps, gold frames around gold paintings of Mr. Big wearing gold. One even depicted Mr. Big as a Roman emperor with a crown of gold leaves on his head. This was a man who loved gold nearly as much as he loved himself. "Sorry, Governor," said Fingers. "We had a little problem with the getaway car." The henchman shot a look to Dad, who bowed his head. "And who is this little worm?" demanded Big. "It's my son, sir," replied Dad. "Ah, so I finally meet the little squirt. Your mum has told me a bit about you." "My mum?" said Frank. trembling.
Didn't your daddy tell you? Said Mr. Big with a smirk. She's my woman now.
Frank looked back to his father, desperately confused. Dad, please tell me this isn't true. Dad took a deep breath. He protected his son from the truth for so long. Now he had no choice but to tell him the whole story. I'm so sorry for you, son, but it's true. Your mother lives here with Mr. Big. Immediately, Frank felt as if he was underwater. The world around him felt silent and heavy. He couldn't think, he couldn't speak, he couldn't breathe. Dad wrapped his arms around his son. I should have told you, mate, but I wanted to protect you from the truth. Frank didn't want to cry in front of these men. He wanted to be strong, but he couldn't. Through tears he asked, "Please, don't tell me my mum is here, right now in this house." Mr. Big smiled.
Of course she is. I don't let her out.
The two henchmen laughed at this joke, which, like most jokes, was serious.
Yes, Mummy's here, continued Mr. Big. Around this time of night you can find her alone in the drawing room, downing a bottle of vintage champagne. Something your daddy could never provide for her.
The henchman laughed again.
So, little Frankie, began Mr. Big, do you miss your mummy? Do you want to see her?
No!
Well, I bet she wants to see you. It's been a while. Chang, tell the lady of the house her son's here.
Yes, master, said the butler, bowing as he left the room. Dad put a protective arm around his son. Don't do this to the boy.
I can't wait to see this, replied Big. Mother and son, reunited at last.
I don't want to see her, Dad. Come on, mate. Let's get out of here, said Dad, taking his son by the hand. But it was too late. The boy's mother appeared in the doorway. Mum looked very different to how Frank had remembered her. Now she was all hair and makeup and nails. Her skin was a good shade darker, and she was dripping in gold jewellery. She looked like a gangster's mole, which was exactly what she had become. And here's a picture of her. There she is.
Oh, haven't you grown? Slurred the woman, holding a glass of champagne with lipstick smudged around the rim.
Seeing her after all this time seemed unreal to Frank, and he eventually managed, "Hello, Mum." Mr. Big beamed. He seemed to be enjoying all of this.
Ain't you going to give your mummy a kiss?
The boy shook his head.
Come on, Frankie, she said as she stumbled into the room.
The woman tottered on her 2 high heels like a foal taking its first steps. Eventually, she was nose to nose with her son. The boy had to close his mouth and try not to breathe. Such was the stench of champagne, hairspray and perfume.
Oh, give me a kiss,
she demanded. I don't want to.
You rude little toe rag, she snarled. Fingers and Thumbs looked on, smirking at the scene. The two black cats purred. Dad leaped in. "You leave my son alone!" The woman turned her head slowly towards him. When her eyes met his, she said, "Gilbert, you're forgetting something, ain't ya? Frank is my son and all." The boy felt caught in the middle. Somewhere deep inside him, he still loved his mum, even though she'd let him down so badly over the years. "Please don't do this," pleaded Dad. "Not now." The boy wrapped his arm around his father's chest and held on tight. The woman's face glowed with anger. "I'm going to bed," she huffed. "No, no, no," cried Mr. Big. "You stay here, my love. I don't want you to get upset. I want you to see what these nice gentlemen have brought me." Chang nodded to Fingers and Thumbs. The pairs snapped into action and emptied the brown suitcase full of money onto the desk. There were bundles and bundles of £50 notes. Each bundle looked like 100 notes, and there were at least 100 bundles. So, that was 50 times 100 times 100. Now, maths wasn't Frank's strong subject. All he knew was that was a lot of noughts. "Look at it, woman," said Mr. Big. Mum's eyes lit up. "Oh, Biggie, it's beautiful." The little crime boss scooped up a huge bundle of cash and handed it to her. "There you go, Babs. Buy yourself something nice for your birthday." "You're the best, Biggie," squealed Mum as she threw her arms around Mr. Big and gave him a long, slobbering kiss. Frank and Dad looked away, and even Fingers, Thumbs and Chang stared at the ceiling. "Don't be long," she purred as she poured the last of the champagne down her throat and wobbled on her high heels. The woman plucked a bundle of notes from one of her wads and stuffed it in the top pocket of Frank's pyjamas. "Here's some pocket money." "I don't want your money," said Frank, and he took the notes out and stuffed them back in her hand. "What do you want then?" "I don't want anything from you," said Frank. "I don't want to see you ever again." The woman's face darkened. It was as if she'd transformed into a serpent. Mum raised her hand as if she was going to slap her son across the face. Dad reached out and grabbed Mum's wrist to stop her. He held onto it tightly, a millimetre from Frank's face. "What are you going to do, Rita?" asked Ed. "I don't know, Gilbert," replied the woman, suddenly shocked by what she might have done. "Haven't you hurt our boy enough already?" "Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I don't know what came over me," she spluttered, the tears running down her cheeks. "I've let you down, Frank. I've let you down. That's all I've ever done. Let you down." "You're embarrassing yourself now," snarled Mr. Big. "Go to bed." Mum bowed her head and tottered out to the study. "It's none of your business how I speak to her. She's my property now," continued Mr. Big to Dad and Frank with a sinister smile. The boy realised this man was bad. Bad beyond redemption. The crime boss then turned his attention to the loot piled on his desk. He picked up a wad of money. First, he sniffed it, then he kissed it, and finally, he ran his fingers along the edge of the notes and put his ear next to them. A huge smile appeared across his little fat face. "Money," he murmured to himself. "Lots and lots of lovely money." "There must be $500,000 there, Governor," said Fingers. "Not too shabby for a night's work, gentlemen. Not too shabby at all." Like throwing a dog a bone, Mr. Big threw a bundle each to his two trusty henchmen, Fingers and Thumbs. "There's your share." The two men looked happy enough with their spoils. "Oh, thank you, Governor."
Thanks a million, Governor,"
added Thumbs excitedly.
"Now I can buy some more football stickers for my collection."
Frank and his father shared a look. Football stickers? I mean, what was he? 10 years old? Next to Mr. Big was a huge tin marked caviar. He pushed a little gold spoon into it and lifted out hundreds of the little blackfish eggs. "Ronnie, Reggie," he called. "Who are they?" thought Frank. The two fat cats stood up, arched their backs, and bared their fangs. "Ronnie?" The first cat licked the spoon and gobbled down the caviar greedily as Reggie hissed, "Don't worry, Reggie, here's yours." Mr. Big then flicked a dollop of caviar into the air, which the beast caught in its mouth. The two cats purred. "Chang?" "Yes, master," replied the butler. "Dump the rest of the roof in the safe for me, will ya?" "With pleasure, master," said the butler. He pulled a picture frame to one side, revealing a safe behind. Chang pressed 4 buttons on the keypad, beep, bop, beep, bop, beep, and the safe door whirred open. Frank stole a look inside. The metal box was completely stacked full of gold bars and £50 notes. And one by one, the butler placed the new bundles inside. When Chang had finished, Frank spoke up. "Mr. Big, this isn't fair. What about my dad's share?" A deathly silence descended. "What did you say to me?" demanded Mr. Big, his little piggy eyes popping with anger. "Nothing," replied Dad, not wanting to cause any trouble. "The boy doesn't mean anything by it." "It wasn't nothing. What did you say to me? You nasty little cockroach." Sounds a bit like a dangerous situation that Frank has got himself into by that innocent remark. Well, we'll just have to wait and see, won't we, what happens next time. Until then, you take care, and thanks for listening. Bye-bye.